Get your work done. All right, so we are now over halfway through with the quarter. As folks were told last week on Friday, any assignments handed in will be graded for progress reports, which are going to be shipped out, I think, Wednesday morning. And also, this is our last full week of school before Christmas break, so that's kind of exciting. So we are starting a new chapter today. We are on chapter 7, and today we're talking about the digestive system. So continuing on with our tour of homeostasis of the body and the body's systems. So, now in thinking about the digestive system, there's a lot of different organs there, and we've been learning about many different organs over the past few weeks.
Pardon for the interruption. Digestive, please come to the main office.
Why are you smiling?
I appreciate that, Missy. That's her name wrong every time. All right, so why do we have specialists? Why do we have different organs with different jobs? Why not just have every cell do its own thing? And we could even frame this in reference to careers, such as doctors. Why not just have one doctor that you go to get treated for everything? Why have foot doctors?
Because they might know other things. They might not know every subject.
More room to learn more things about that specific person.
All right, so you're saying these doctors might learn more about this thing. She's saying that the doctor might have a deeper knowledge, right? Why not just have one teacher teach all your subjects?
It can confuse them. I don't know. Because it becomes complicated.
All right, let's say as a teacher I spend the majority of my time, obviously, planning biology lessons. Let's say I now had to plan English, math, and history lessons as well. Would the biology lessons be as good?
No.
All right.
You wouldn't have time to get more information.
All right, so we're keeping at the information level right now, but what is it specifically we're saying? Like between doctor, different kinds of politicians, these are all what? You get paid for them? Jobs, right? If you have different organs doing different jobs, they can each do that job really well, right? So, for example, what do folks remember about the heart? What's the heart's job? To pump blood, right? So it's all of its cells are specifically designed to accomplish that one task, which makes them highly efficient at it. So, in thinking about the digestive system, digestion happens in many different ways. We're going to talk about the multiple phases of digestion today. And those special organs create that. So let's have someone read our quote. Maybe they can even say extra about it. Can you see back there?
Juju.
Juju, just take a deep breath. She's preparing herself. Read the quote.
Contemplation is to great knowledge, and digestion is to food.
All right, great. So we have a metaphor here, right? We're saying that this situation is analogous or similar to this situation. Let's go with the one we understand first. What is digestion? What happens to food when we digest it?
The process where food is broken down.
Process broken down, right? Taken into smaller bits, right? So we digest food. What is it to contemplate something? When you're in a state of contemplation, please to help. All right, you're thinking about it. When you think about a situation you've experienced, or something you've learned, or something you've read, do you start to see the smaller pieces of the situation, like more and more details about it? Yeah, right? So we're kind of thinking about how, when you contemplate, it's kind of like digesting knowledge, right? You're taking it, you're breaking it down to smaller pieces about maybe what each word means or what the overall statement means. And this allows you to nourish your mind with it the way digestion would nourish your body. All right, and then as for our homework, usual routine, right? So we've got some reading to do in the book. You're defining the 5-fold terms. 3 of those are embedded in the diagrams. They're not in the paragraphs. So just be mindful that 3 of those terms won't be in the paragraphs directly. honors folks, you've got that extra little piece to do. You'll find that in the chart on the first page there on 338. You'll also see it again on 341. So there's 2 places to get that info. All right, looks like we're ready to roll. As you can see on your tabletops, there are some tools there, which obviously you know we'll be using today. The first one will be your dark blue.
All right.
All right, so the first piece of anatomy we're talking about today is one we've actually talked about before in a previous body system.
Yo, this
So using your dark blue pencil, we're going to outline, underline, highlight, or shade oral cavity. JR and Precious have.
There's 2 of them. And then there's me and Vic. Excuse me. Okay. What colors do we need?
All of them. Alright, so oral cavity is the site of mastication, which is our new fancy biology way of saying chewing. So we'll just go ahead and put that right above it. Right, so is the site of chewing, right? So this action of the teeth and the tongue acting together to clutch, to grind, to liquefy food. And there's several reasons why this will happen, but first and foremost is, what happens if you swallow something that hasn't been properly chewed?
You'll choke.
Alright, right, so for one thing, it might not make it down the tube properly, right? It might be too large, it might get caught in the tube. But also,
You know what
food
else
you
is too
haven't
large?
chewed well, what do you maybe notice about maybe the next day about that food? So say I've had a nice meal with some corn in it and I haven't chewed it properly. What do I observe hours for day later?
What?
Yes, Claudia.
I start having stomach.
You could perhaps, right? You could perhaps have stress on your stomach and some pain there. But more specifically, a day later, look in the bowl, what might I see?
mold. Oh wait.
Right.
I
And
don't
what might
know.
be in that if I haven't chewed my corn well enough?
Chunks.
Of
Corn.
corn, right? So food that's not chewed properly can't be digested properly and winds up just coming out like it went in, right? So it's really important to chew your food well. Does anyone actually know the rule of chewing? I have some.
It's 20 bites. 20 chunks.
How many times do you chew something before you swallow it? Does anyone know?
22, right?
22, very nice. Right, so for every mouthful of food you take, you're supposed to chew it 22 times. This way the food can be broken down to the smallest molecular state
I
possible,
didn't know that.
and therefore easily absorbed, right?
I love it.
I
And
take like 5 bites.
I know, and we'll talk more about what happens with the 5-bite model later on in class. We'll keep you in suspense.
That's
All right, so, all right, next up in purple, we have our salivary glands. In purple, we have our salivary glands. Yeah, go ahead. Of course. Purple, please. All right, so our salivary glands release a chemical known as amylase. We're going to be talking about this type of chemical a lot when we come back from break. But you'll notice that I have put the suffix in bold terms. Right, anytime you see a word in my class that ends in ASE, it is an enzyme. And we've mentioned enzymes a few times before, but we're going to have some more formal learning about them coming up soon. So salivary glands release an enzyme, and this enzyme breaks down carbohydrates. Who can remind me from health class? What are some examples of carbohydrates? What are some molecules? Yeah.
Apples.
All right, apples have a lot of carbohydrates. And we think of apples as being what? What essential nutrient do we get from apples? Things that give us quick energy? Sugars, right? So carbohydrates are, sugars are a great example of that. Something found mostly in potatoes and plantanos.
Plátano gang.
What carbohydrates in those? Potatoes have a lot of this.
Sodium.
If you put it on there, true. Sometimes it's used to thicken soups.
Fiber.
A lot of fiber, indeed. And if I say starch, we all know what
Cornstarch.
starches, right? So those are all examples of carbohydrates. Now, has anyone ever done the thing where you you hold your tongue up and look in the mirror and you can see the salivary gland, the saliva shooting out?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, right? So you can see saliva being ejected from those glands. You just hold your tongue up and look in the mirror, get close. You'll see it squirting out. It doesn't like spray across the room or anything, but you'll see it kind of
It
popping out.
happens to me. I don't know.
Yours are very forceful, it ejects out, yeah.
It's
Sometimes when you talk too.
yeah.
And how angry you are. All right, so next up in our lighter blue is our esophagus.
I know that's your throat, right?
Very nice. Right, so Catalina, remember that our very common word, right, for esophagus is the throat. Right, the esophagus is a muscular tube that uses mucus, right, that uses liquid from the salivary glands, and the action of peristalsis, which we talked about once before, so we'll come back to that in a moment. And the job of the esophagus is to compress, to squeeze the food molecules, as well as lubricate them so they slide down through the rest of the digestive system. Now we've got a few things here we're going to underline and put some words around, because some of this stuff is more familiar than you might think. For example, look at our suffix here, phagus. Where have we had that word before? Just in the last test. Phagocytosis, right? What did that mean again? That action of phagocytosis that macrophages do? To eat, right? So notice here we're talking about a digestive organ, and the very word that means to eat is embedded in that organ's name. Also peristalsis. Huh? Because it's your throat, right? It's where the food is supposed to go down. Now what about this action of peristalsis? We talked about this once before too. The trachea does this, it uses its motion. If food has accidentally gone down your windpipe, down your trachea. Of course, what action occurs if food goes down the wrong pipe? It pushes it up, right? So folks remember peristalsis as being that undulating movement, right? Is it coughing a consistent thing? Are you like, ugh? Or is it interrupted? It's interrupted, right? Because the esophagus doesn't just have one solid push, it's a wave-like motion, right? So it's, right? So it's squeeze, it's compress, relax, compress, relax. So thinking about how other organs in the body also use peristalsis as an action. All right. Move it on. One big shake. Oh, all right. There's two people. Give them a moment. They get 10 seconds. Oops, wrong way. Come on, you can do it. It's okay, smartboard. Right, and
You look like a squirrel under that hood.
where are all these objects in the body? They're all, like what part? Everything above the chest and the shoulders, right? So this first part of digestion all occurs up in the head and neck. And we'll talk a little bit more about what phase of digestion is in at the end, after we've got a bigger picture to look at. All right, probably over time. Get it from you, Dave. All right, so next up in our darker green of our two greens, we're going to talk about the stomach.
That's where all the food and stuff is.
It's where, yes, the chamber where all the food is going to wind up. Now, we've got this action word here, this site of catabolism, which we're going to talk a lot about on Thursday's notes. So for now, I'll just give you the quick hint version. The prefix cata appears in a few words in the English language, such as catastrophe, or maybe Catalina. What is a catastrophe? What happens in a catastrophe? Everything is destroyed, everything is broken down, taken apart. If I categorize something, am I keeping it together or separating it? Separating, right? So you can think of kata as this process of things, being broken or separated. And we'll talk more about the bolism part on Thursday when we talk about the different phases of metabolism. But for now, let's move on. So we've got, in the stomach here, we have another enzyme word, right, ending in ASE, our protease. And you can actually make a really good inference as to what molecule this breaks down. What food molecule begins with this prefix? Proteins, right? So proteins are broken down in the stomach by this enzyme protease. And also they're... And right, sometimes gases are built up, right? She sees that gas and gastric juices. Very nice, right? So proteins and gastric juices, hydrochloric acid, ionized nutrients. We're going to talk a heap about ionization later on, but we'll give you the quick version you need to know for now. I'll give you an example of ionization out of your notes. Who can tell me what this molecule is right here? That is salt. Now, if I take salt and I fracture it into its two different elements, sodium and chlorine, each gains an electrical charge, right? Positive or negative. And that's kind of what ionization is all about. And we're going to have a lab about pH, the acid-alkaline scale, coming up, and we'll talk way more about this in depth. So this is just our preview version. All right, so now the stomach is assisted by an organ known as the liver. Food never actually passes through your liver. Your liver just pumps enzymes into the stomach to help it break down foods. Now I've coupled it with the gallbladder as, you know, if I were to say that the liver is Santa and the gallbladder is an elf, which one of those two things is essential for the operation?
What? Say one more time.
Like, you know, who's more important in the whole Santa elf scheme? Santa, right? There's many elves, right? So the gallbladder assists the liver. You've heard of people getting their gallbladder removed. It's a helpful organ, but not an essential one. You can survive without it. All right, so what the job of the liver is to release bile into the stomach, and the gallbladder's job stores that bile, excess bile, which again is why it's, you know, non-essential. It's more of a storage container than, you know, a physiologically, chemically producing organ. And bile is an electrolyte compound. Where have you guys heard of electrolytes before?
In your class.
Or maybe, yeah, in my class. Also, Catalina, maybe you can tell me. Where have you heard of electrolytes? Are there any certain drink products that have them? You have to come in bright articles. Like, oh, maybe someone's giving an example.
Powerade.
Yeah, like all those sports drinks, right? They have electrolytes. What makes a sports drink different than lemonade? They both have sugar. But what's the other thing they add to the electrolyte drink? Salt. Very nice. Right, so an electrolyte has some kind of mineral in it, such, you know, so like a salt or a potassium or a calcium. And JR has removed the label from his drink, but if it was still intact, he could look on there, he'd see potassium in the ingredients list.
Right, if it's intact.
Right, so, you know, and these things create a slight electrical charge, and they emulsify lipids. So see if we can think about if we can guess at what that means based on the evidence available. First off, what's a lipid? Who remembers what that was from an earlier lecture? It's our everyday word for that.
What?
Something you're not supposed to eat too much of.
What's that?
Fats, right? So folks remember that. Folks might remember that lipids are fats. Now, if we're saying that we're adding, you know, a chemical with a slight electrical charge to our stomach, I'm just thinking about what the overall purpose of the stomach is. What do we think emulsification is of fats? What do you think it does to the fat molecules?
It kills.
All right, so she's using the word kills, right? It breaks them apart. It
Yeah.
dissolves them. It diffuses them. Right, so you could kind of replace this word emulsify with diffuse. We're talking about the diffusion of lipids specifically with emulsification. All right, we're going to do an experiment later on here where we emulsify some things. All right, so next up is our pancreas. We're going to do that in yellow. Now, like the liver, food never actually passes through the pancreas. The pancreas is an accessory organ. It sends enzymes into the stomach. When you do your homework tonight, you'll see a lot about the pancreas and what it does. Now, as a support structure, as an organ that provides an enhancing of the stomach's physiology, the pancreas releases almost every kind of enzyme for every kind of organic molecule. So for one thing, it releases lipase. And let's go back to our idea here, right? So we have ACE, meaning it's an enzyme. Since it begins with lip, what molecule does it break down, this enzyme? The fats, the lipids, right? So lipase to break down our fats. Once again, we have our protease, so we talked about in the stomach, breaking down our proteins. And we talked about that amylase back in the salivary glands to break down our carbohydrates. So the pancreas's job as a support organ is to release all these enzymes in the stomach that break down every and any kind of food substance you ingest. The pancreas has a second, a little bit more interesting function. So you've heard how the stomach is filled with acid, right? It has this hydrochloric acid inside of it. What does acid do to the rest of your tissues if it comes in contact with it? Let's say acid were to escape your stomach. it would damage them, it would break them down, right? So part of what the pancreas does is as food moves from the stomach down to the intestines, it buffers it, it turns that acid into a neutral chemical, so it's no longer dangerous. And that will be a part of our experiment that we do tomorrow. Alright, so now the pancreas is not simply a digestive organ, it's also an endocrine gland, which we're going to talk about on Thursday. Meaning that it also regulates the functions of other things. It releases hormones. So it releases two types of major organic chemicals, enzymes and hormones, both of which are proteins. Folks, we're at that point where you'll want to get it from a neighbor and or from the website.
No. It's only that one last sentence.
All right. And the last sentence you'll read about in the homework tonight as well, so if you missed it now, it's not the end of the world. All right, here we go. Folks, a lot of folks waiting. I'll get Nancy. All right, next up we're going to talk about the small intestine.
That red.
And that is in red, thank you. So the small intestine's job is it transports any broken down or available nutrients into the bloodstream through that action of diffusion, which we've talked about a bunch of times now. Can someone remind me what diffusion's all about? All right, the molecules are going from a what to a what? Or, go ahead. Spreading out, right? They're spreading from a high concentration where they're all bundled together to a lower concentration where they're all apart. We've also got another review word here. The small intestine is lined with small structures known as cilia. We're going to put someone in the hot seat for this one. Victoria, our lucky lady. Victoria, do you remember what cilia were? Many small organisms, bacteria, protists, have cilia outside of them. They look like this. Remember how we described them? Give you a hint.
Long and floaty. What?
Oh, so nice.
You gonna need a better description than that.
Small hairs, right? So, Catalina might remember that we talked about the small hairs that many microorganisms have that use cilia to move. Now, our small intestine is not doing a lot of moving around. It's an organ that food passes through. So why do you think it would have these little finger-like hair projections as food passes through the organ? Yeah. To take the nutrients in better, right? To better grab onto, yeah.
Don't cilia got like little mouths or something like that grab?
So the cilia themselves are also lined with other small little hairs, right? Like almost you could think of them like little mouths or hands. We're going to draw a simple sketch of the small intestine that's inside to support this last sentence about cilia and surface area. So you can use your red pencil to either fully write it or to fill it in afterwards. But we're going to go ahead and make just a section of the small intestine. So we're going to make a tube and leave a lot of space inside the tube because we're going to be writing and drawing within it.
Hold up.
Here, I'll even make mine wider just to
Can I ask you a question, Mr.
sit. Of course you can.
So, like, you know when you're, like, sick and you, like, want to throw up, there's, like, a fluid that, like, you spit out before you throw up. What is that?
It's just the saliva. A lot of saliva builds up to lubricate the tube so that everything comes out easier.
Wait, are we done with notes?
All right, so no, we're just adding a little picture in here. All right, so I'm going to draw some cilia inside my small intestine here, and of course you'll do the same. Right, so we're thinking these as little finger hair-like projections. And I'm seeing here this increases surface area. So I'm going to go back to an example we used with the brain. Folks may remember from a do now back in chapter 1. You know, I said to you, if I have these two objects, right, they're both roughly the same shape. Which one would be longer if I straightened out the line? The one that's smooth or the one that's wrinkly?
The one that's... No, the one that's wrinkly. No, I don't know.
They could be the same size.
Perhaps.
No.
So if
Wait,
I were to,
say it
if I were to make an incision right here, and stretch these two things out, which one would stretch out longer? The one.
That doesn't it have more like something.
Yeah, like the squiggly line would, right? Because there's more of it pushed into a small space. So the same thing happens in my small intestine. By having all these cilia there, right, I create more area inside the small intestine. Now let's go ahead and draw that action of diffusion. So let's say we've got some food molecules traveling down through our intestine, right? Obviously, some of them are going to get caught in our cilia here,
So, wait.
right? So we're just showing some food molecules traveling down through the intestine. And then right outside of the intestine are our blood vessels. Which blood vessel brings blood to the heart? To the heart.
To the heart?
Veins, right? So, and then the one taking blood away from the heart is, of course, the
Arteries.
arteries. We're getting there, right? So all the blood moving away from the heart and the arteries is going to capture these molecules as they diffuse through the membrane and carry them to your cells, right? So we'll just show those food molecules maybe going to some cells. So just like in the respiratory and cardiovascular system, we talked about how blood carried oxygen to the cells for diffusion. The small intestine also provides nutrients into the blood that can carry the cells to be diffused. And you'll elaborate on this more when you read tonight's homework. So just giving you a nice little preview of it, so you have a visual example. All right, so we've talked about the small intestine. What else do we know is in there?
Large intestine.
The large intestine, right? So we're going to add that, and we'll make that one in orange. So the job of the large intestine is to,
How about that? Say it's in the small intestine, that's large.
yeah, we're going to get there. Right, so the large intestine absorbs water from the digested food. It compresses all of the undigested mass, particularly things that are found in fruits and vegetables, one of the major reasons you eat them. So remember when in Ms. Katrina's class you guys talked about, why is it really important to have a lot of like vegetables in particular? What do they have a lot of?
Protein,
The-
carbohydrates,
So
a lot of stuff.
they have a lot of nutrients. What's the thing that helps food get pushed through your digestive tract? Fibers, right? So undigested mass are the fibers, the things your body couldn't digest, right? No matter how well you chew up those little strings on the outside of celery, ultimately you can't actually fully absorb all of that. And it absorbs the last of the nutrients that might be available. Basically what the large intestine does is what forms feces. Yes, Mr. Luna?
So like when you have diarrhea, isn't there a problem with the large intestine?
Indeed, right? So the food never got the water taken out of it, and it never got compressed, right? So instead it comes out in a liquid form, just like it did when you were first chewing it. So the large intestine's job is to fully form the feces. And as part of that, when we see our picture later, you'll notice that the large intestine is kind of segmented. It has this rounded shape around it, similar to the way your feces look when they escape your body. So now Jihad asked a really good question.
So it's shaped while it's in your large intestine to go, so it can like fit it easily or something like that?
Yeah, and it's about the undulation, about the peristalsis that happens. All right, now one of these tubes I'm drawing here is 22 feet long, and the other one is like 4 to 8 feet. Again, we're depending on the visual.
The small intestine is 40 feet and the large intestine.
Yeah, which one of these is which?
What do you mean?
I think, what's that one?
All right.
That's the large intestine.
They're in each
Yeah.
other, so the large intestine.
No, the small intestine and the large intestine. It's not in, but it's.
All right, Mr. Lee, you want to add to this too? Looks like you have your hand up.
The large intestine is 4 to 8 feet. The small intestine is 22 feet.
All right, and
The
that,
large, no.
Yes.
and he's actually correct. So the
The-
intestine's size isn't named for its length, right? The small intestine is a long, narrow tube. The large intestine being a shorter, wider tube. It's named for its diameter, right? For its circumference, right? So the large intestine is that because it is a wider object. How'd you, what did that? Okay. Right, so it is named the small intestine because of its diameter, not because of its length. It's actually the longer of the two. All right, so let's keep going. All right, so next up in brown, using your brown color pencil, we have the rectum. Actually, wait, I apologize. This one's supposed to just be in your normal pen or pencil.
It's the bottom of your
Yeah.
You can
If you already use your brown, no big deal, but this was actually supposed to be in your black pen or pencil, I forgot. No big deal though. Alright, so the job of the rectum is to store all the feces that's been made by the large intestine until it hits the point where you've reached capacity and it's time to expel those feces. Right, so this is simply a container where all the feces are collected until they're ready to be ejected from your body. And the average rectum can hold a good cup's worth of material before it's ready to release those things. And that's that point. And once it hits that capacity, that's the point where you start getting really sweaty and you're like, I need to find a bathroom immediately or something bad's going to happen. All right, now again, once that storage container is full of the feces that have been created by the large intestine, it needs to be expelled. And we have a muscular ring that will do that job for us. That is the anus, and we'll do that one in brown if you didn't use brown already. All right, now the anus is the small ring of muscle around the opening at the end of your digestive tract. Because you got a hole we all thought was really funny when we were kids. So the job of the anus is actually to most of the day remain contracted, right? If this hole didn't remain closed, what would be happening continuously throughout the day? Well, there'd be gas release, but also feces, right? So feces would be continually, falling out of your body.
That's embarrassing.
All throughout the day, right? So what the anus does is it contains it until the point at which you find a safe place to release it. Right, so it contracts when it's signaled by the rectum, right? The rectum says, I'm full now, you need to find a place to get rid of this stuff. That's when you will expel it. And I want to think about the anus, since it's a muscle, what types of people have the most trouble controlling their bowels? Who who are the most likely to defecate on themselves?
Old people.
Babies and
And
older
babies.
people.
What? Remember what?
Are the muscles of babies strong?
No.
No, right? Their anus isn't developed enough yet to hold the feces in. And as you get older, what's happened to your muscles?
They're getting weaker.
They get weaker, right? So part of the joy of maturing, right, is incontinence, right? As you get older, your muscles will weaken, and things that used to work well don't work so well anymore, right? And you find yourself in some potentially embarrassing situations. All right, now since we've kind of gotten all through this, right, we should talk about what you should see when you look in the bowl. Does anyone know what the rule is for feces?
No.
It has to be like clumped together.
It should be fully formed, absolutely. And once that fully formed log hits the water, what should it do?
Splash.
Well,
Float?
it should float, right? Feces should be fully formed and floating, right? So if you look down in the bowl and you see a nice dark brown log and it's floating at the top, great job, you digested your food properly.
Well,
Now going back to
Oh,
what
I have to.
Catalina mentioned earlier, she said, well, what happens if you only chew a few times, right? A good example of if you haven't chewed your food well enough, you can't digest it. It often comes out pasty or sometimes green.
Everyone's gonna take a dump.
Everyone's done that thing where it just looks like you squeeze a tube of toothpaste into the bowl, right? So that means that perhaps
You did not digest your food.
you didn't digest your food, right? Maybe you ate too much, more than your stomach could break down. Maybe you didn't chew it well enough, or maybe you ate something that you were slightly even allergic to, right? But generally speaking, look in the bowl, it should be full formed and floating. I would challenge my students this week to make a little poop chart. So to maybe throughout the week, take some pictures of your bowel movements.
And you pass this class.
And you can hand this in as an assignment. So if you've got a good 7 pictures by the end of the week, by this time next week, and you say like, oh, this one is this color and not floating, so I must not have chewed well enough, or whatnot, right? So
Are you asking these students to take a picture of this shit, Mr. Carbohydrates?
you might have to show me the pictures, but you could use it to write your little paragraph. The first class was really into this. They were actually the ones that came up with it, so I'll offer it to you guys as well.
Your
How
first
about
class-
how about if you don't
your
take
first
a
class
dump that day?
If you guys want to get a good
And you might
grade,
not every day, right?
I have a good grade.
show
Who was your first class?
Jahar actually asked another really important poop chart question, something you can keep track of for yourself over the next week.
Why you got
How many times a day should you be defecating?
One.
Two.
It
Twice.
takes 12 hours for food to digest.
24. It takes about 24 hours to get through.
That's 12.
You should be defecating the number of times you ate a meal the day before. So if you eat like twice on Tuesday, that should be 2 poops on Wednesday, right?
Around the same time.
Because it takes about 24 hours for that stuff to move on through. All right, so obviously you know what's coming next. We got a little diagram here. At the end, we're going to separate the digestive system into its phases, but for now, let's get our picture
I
drawn.
learned this stuff in 6th grade.